I met with Akiva, I met with other screenwriters, mostly very serious dramatists. But Akiva wanted to do it so badly. His desire was so strong. And he had a take, the beginnings of a take, which it turned out to be what the movie was having an alternate living through an alternate reality. And not knowing that you were living through this alternate reality until a certain point. But it also got you very much inside the mind of mental illness.
I encountered the book in galleys, Sylvia Nasar's extraordinary biography. And what's remarkable about it is it's very much the outside of a life. John doesn't remember much of the time when he was ravaged by his disease. John doesn't remember his delusions. He doesn't know what he saw or what he believed, except in the briefest snippets. So this afforded me an interesting opportunity, which is within this perfectly detailed exterior life, I could build an inner life, and in so doing, give the audience a window into what it might feel like to suffer from this disease. And what I wanted to do was to show the audience the world the way the person who suffers from the disease sees it first, then rob them of that security in the same way that somebody who suffers from the disease is robbed. So the experience of the movie would be, in the smallest possible way, a replication of the experience of the disease.
Imagine if you had suddenly learned that the people, the places, the moments most important to you were not gone, not dead, but worse, have never been.
I was very excited by the material, and it was owned by Brian Grazer and Imagine Pictures. I went to Brian, and I actually begged him to hire me. There was singing, there was dancing, there was cajoling. I shared with him my idea, which was to build this inner landscape and make it as real to the audience as delusions are to people who suffer from schizophrenia. And oddly, Brian was kind enough to entrust the material to me. The first thing you do, or the first thing I do when writing an adaptation is to steep myself in the source material. I read the book several times. I researched the periods that seemed of significance to me as the story was starting to take shape in my mind, so that I was steeped in the environment. Sometimes you just read almanacs, what are the songs that were playing, what shows were on Broadway, what did people call their shoes, And what happens is the era creeps into your understanding of the world, so that it informs your writing in ways that you're not aware of, and certainly you don't use most of the detail, but it's in there in your head. The most significant voice, besides my own, in the script, in its first draft, its first incarnations, is a woman named Karen Kahila, who runs, who's co-chairman of Imagine. And Karen and I got into a room, and for days and days just sat there bouncing, working idea and talking it through, and what do you think of it? Oh my God. And I think Karen looked at me one day and she said, Marcy never gets old. I was like, Marcy never gets old, which is one of the major turning points of the movie, as we were struggling to figure out how John would represent his understanding of
she never gets old.
His illness to the audience.
Marcy can't be real. She never gets old.
As a creative partner, she was wildly significant. And then Ron read the script, and he liked it.
It's a good, strong moment. And background. Okay, and action.
And Ron said, I'd like to direct it, which, A, never happens, right? Nobody wants to direct your first draft, much less Ron Howard.
Does that seem efficient enough? Does that seem believable enough that they've really communicated to the guard? That it's sort of official enough? Or should Saul stay and talk to him a little longer? One more.
He simply goes, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Listen, and then decides what to do. But he really listens. It's not perfunctory. But so Ron, for example, felt that the love story was missing in the middle of the piece, and he would say to me, you might want to try, a scene where he proposes to her, which is incidentally one of my favorite scenes in the movie and was not in the first draft. And I'm like, oh, Ron, that'll never work. And he goes, yeah, well, you just give it a try. So I'm sitting there and I'm typing.
How big is the universe?
And I did it 2 or 3 times over the course of a week or 2.
I know, because all the data indicate the same.
But it hasn't been proven yet.
No.
Yeah.
And then I just thought,
You know for sure.
oh my God.
I don't.
And I called up Ron and I went, okay, fine, it works. And I love that scene.
It's the same with love, I guess.
My other favorite scene is the scene where Jennifer says, I'd like to believe something extraordinary is possible. I mean, I wrote that scene 75 times, literally. And each time, it got less and less work.
Maybe it's here.
So that the one you see finally has very few. I could show you pages.
I need to believe that something extraordinary is possible.
Russell came in after the first draft. Ron supervised now the second draft, and we send it to Russell. And Russell decides to do it. And then we got into this postmodern feedback loop of writer, director, actor. We'd be in rehearsals, and Russell would start to say something, and I would look at Ron, and Ron would point over there, and then I'd start writing, and then Russell would say, there are too many R's there, and I'd hear the sound. And we'd just start whipping around in this kind of make it while it's happening way. And that went on all the way through a movie, whether it be on the day and the construction of a line or a moment, or structurally, so that as I watched Russell grow his nails, to feel his fingers, it occurred to me that when he needed to dig out his implant, I could use the nails rather than what used to be in the script, which was a brad off a bed. And so it was performance, direction, script, all feeding into each other all the time.
Serious film. Drama.
Mental health movies are often like going to the zoo. They can be wonderful, but you go with the normal person surrogate, and together you view the person with mental illness. You see the disease from the outside in, and it does a disservice to our ability to empathize and understand. If we saw the world the way people who suffer see it, we would understand them differently. The hope being that if one person came home from the movie theater, just one, and saw somebody screaming at empty air on a street corner and related to them differently, with understanding, then we would have done our job.